Okay, good morning, everyone. It's our Friday morning reflection, and looks like we've got people are gathering, and we'll just take a minute to breathe in, breathe out a bit, and settle. Okay, so I think one of the things that I was reflecting on this morning is just the importance of the refuges. It's so easy to overlook those traditional refuges of Buddhism and Sangha, and assume that they are, either just some kind of ordinary foundational stuff, or even some quaint relic from the past, not so needed in our sophisticated modern world. But the reality is the mind, the heart, is always seeking for a refuge anyway, and that's it's a really important part of practice, and when we are developing our mindfulness and awareness and reflection, to pay attention to what is the mind, the heart, taking refuge in. And we take refuge in a lot of things. We take refuge in our distractions. We take refuge in our stories. The stories we have about ourselves, the stories we have about the world around us, and we take refuge in those, because if you reflect, well, what is a refuge? And well, it's what the heart turns to when it doesn't have anything else in that moment, in any particular moment, but certainly moments of say of difficulty, or just where nothing, it's neutral. So it's like things are neutral, and where does the mind go to? What does it take as its refuge? So to be reflecting on that, and to pay attention, so that we are then able to more consciously direct attention toward the refuges of Buddhism and Sangha. and not necessarily in any um, not necessarily in some classical form, like, oh, I take refuge in the Buddha, so then my mind immediately goes to some beautiful Buddha image or some Buddha realm somewhere. It's the refuge of that sense of knowing, awareness, a clear knowing. That is a refuge. The that sense of having a foundation in that knowing presence within the heart, and then we want to analyze it. Then we want to pin it down, and well, then what we're doing, we're starting to take refuge in logic and our thinking, and it's not much of a refuge, because our logic and our thinking are proliferating. Yeah, it's not much of a refuge at all. Refuge in Dhamma, just the again, not so much in the refuge in this sutta or that sutta or all of the suttas, and it's a sense of there is a fundamental truth. There is a fundamental, almost say, rightness or correctness of the of our within our existence. Ajahn Chah was asked one time, well, what is Dhamma? And in Thai, it's kind of hard to it is hard to translate, because Ajahn Chah's answer was, Dhamma isความถูกต้อง, and it's the kind of the rightness or correctness or the just rightness of the of things as they are, which if you try to analyze that statement, that means absolutely nothing. but it's a it is a there is but it's something, because it's not, again, if you're trying to analyze it, but it's more something that you intuit and you feel, that Dhamma is something that you have maybe trust in. You can trust this rightness, and this directness of being able to be in the presence of truth. So, I mean, sometimes the more you talk about it, the more tangled it gets, and that's exactly what a refuge is being able to have a clarity that allows one to trust in one's own experience and to trust in the world around one, and to not be shaken. Refuge in Sangha. Refuge is not in a bunch of people wearing bed sheets. I mean, it is a refuge in conduct and in practice, like in the traditional chanting of the that Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, the disciples of the Blessed One are those who practice well, practice directly, practice insightfully, practice with integrity. And of course, that's not outside oneself, that is inside oneself. One starts to have that refuge of, this is what it means to practice in a good way. This is going directly to what is beneficial, and having a insight and clarity, and living one's life with integrity. That's that foundation in sila is not just following rules, but within one's heart, one recognizes what is truly beneficial. So then we do have this opportunity to turn to the refuges, and we need to turn to the refuges, because we look to the world for affirmation or a sense of confirmation of something that is troubling us. Um, it's really confusing. I mean, it was confusing. It's always been confusing. Now with the internet, I mean, it's even more confusing, as people are it's a whole medium devoted to mass information, misinformation, disinformation, and it's chaotic. And so that having an internal foundation where one is okay, this is, and it doesn't necessarily mean that one's going to be not going to be a sure thing. So okay, this now I don't have to have any more doubts, any more uncertainties. Part of the Dhamma is actually, oh, this is unsure, this is uncertain, this is changing. This that the reality of Dhamma is also the reality of, say, anicca, dukkha, anatta, and this is not sure, this is not satisfactory, this is not self, and that is a it's really I say that is the place where one can again have a refuge. Okay, oh, I don't know. Do I need to know? And that's really it's really helpful. That sense of refuge, and okay, whatever the case, there is this sense of just knowing awareness. There is this sense of there is a kind of a rightness, or a just rightness within this world of chaos and confusion. So that being able to keep returning to that, and to turn to it, and to recognize when we don't. What is it? What does our mind go to? And to not sort of shy away from, back away from, the dukkha that we do experience, and that kind of discontent, dissatisfaction, dis-ease. Dukkha is uncomfortable, and it is a, we want to put a patch over it, we want to put a band-aid on it and not have to deal with it, but to be able to reflect on what is this, how does this work, what's it, how does it affect me, how do I work with this. One of the things that the Buddha said, which is really, I mean, it's very succinct and but incredibly important, is that there's two possible outcomes to dukkha, and because if you start looking at the world in terms of the causal processes and cause and effect relationships, and okay, dukkha is um, that is something that's leading to something else. And the Buddha says that there's two possible outcomes. And first one is more dukkha, and the other is a, a, an arising of a search for understanding, search for meaning, search for ways to skillfully skillfully understand, skillfully overcome. And so that we want to be taking the dukkha that we experience or we see around us, and then to bring it in to the heart and use it as a catalyst for this noble search, noble quest for understanding, for realizing something that leads to freedom from dukkha. And of course, that's what the Buddha kept emphasizing over and over again, is that I teach only two things: dukkha and the ending of dukkha. So I'll leave that as a reflection this morning, and we'll take a look at some questions.
Two fingers to scroll up.
Okay. Lots of people checking in. Okay, question. Do you know when, if Ajahn Siddhanta will be back and how he's been doing? Can you tell him we say hello? Nobody knows. This is a Dhamma of uncertainty. Ajahn Siddhanta he's doing well. He's been at Abhayagiri since he left the Hermitage in late November, early December last year. Early December last year, and he was settled into what we call Santi Vihara. It's a new property that we got just across from the monastery, and he was there. And then shortly after I came up to the Hermitage, then Ajahn Siddhanta moved into my kuti, which he was very happy with. He was very happy in the other place. So he's been enjoying himself, and hard to know. I think he was ready for a sabbatical, a break, and we'll just have to wait and see when he's feeling ready to be back again. And we'll certainly pass on good wishes from everyone. Okay, it's okay. I've been considering ordination for many years after long stays at Chitters. My main concern is the difficulty of disrobing after many years without any money or job. What advice could you offer? Well, I mean, there's there comes to mind. So it's like all this. There's been main concern difficulties, or I mean, it's also you've been considering ordination for many years. I mean, there's also the difficulty of actually robing. so it's a it's not a an easy decision, and it really is an act of relinquishment. And so that I don't think living in the robes and living in a monastic form turns one into a completely incompetent and incapable human being that can't deal with the world anymore, and so that if one left the robes, for the most part, yeah, I mean, you'd be fine. You could figure it out. There's one has been cultivating some human skills, and those are translatable in the world. But it's also, is there certainty? Is there security? Is there no? And being able to be comfortable without security, without a certainty, that's something that is definitely not a. I mean, whether we're in the robes or leave the robes, that is the reality of human existence. So much of the security and certainty is what we keep propping up, and that it takes a lot of effort to prop that up all the time. So that that sense of probably not so different from what I've just been talking about, and it's cultivating where is our refuge. What are we taking for refuge? What do we want as refuge? So that being able to direct one's attention, because that's what is the mind looking for as a refuge, and we get quite desperate, and taking money or a job or relationships or whatever, we take those as a refuge, and and that's not. The world has to function, and but to contemplate life without that is where does the mind go for refuge? So there's these reflections, and learning how to skillfully work with say if we're in the world, how do we deal with those things? If we're interested in leaving the world, how can we relinquish that? Maybe Ajahn Karunadhammo has some thoughts.
Just really, I think you hit it on the spot with referring back to your reflection on where do you put your refuge, and just knowing, what the mind of doubt feels like. It's a doubtful state of mind, and you can start to explore that in and of itself rather than getting too involved in the actual storyline. And just as Luang was saying during his reflection, feeling comfortable with that uncertainty, and knowing the mind that doesn't know, kind of taking refuge in that as a truth in itself. You can't know everything. It's not a good not a good habit to try and take refuge in finding certainty in all of that which is inherently uncertain. You don't know what it's going to be like if you were to ordain. You don't know what it's going to be like if you decided to disrobe. But also just taking refuge in simplicity and creating you don't have to have huge amounts of money and security to live a very happy life. So that's just a few thoughts.
Yeah. Okay, so next question. Could you give us an example of how you've recently taken refuge? Why, how, which refuge you chose? If you don't mind sharing a real life example to illustrate, you can skip my question if you want. Well, I mean, one of the things is again, refuge is, once you start expanding the concept of refuge a bit, in that sense of, say, rather than, oh, I take refuge in a concept of the Buddha, or some heightened religious kind of exaltation in the Buddha principle. I mean, that's a bit much. But if I take refuge in the quality of awareness and knowing, that is the like in the Thai language, when they translate the word Buddha, Pulu Putun Puberban, it sort of points to three qualities. Is the this quality of knowing, quality of awakening, and quality of brightness of mind, happiness of mind. And those are internal qualities of the heart that one wants to take refuge in, rather than, say, taking refuge in doubt. So, what am I going to do? Say, so that's and then, okay, what do I take refuge in something that's uncertain? So say I'm just thinking of, okay, she asking for a concrete example, just in terms of this morning, wake up and do my exercises, sit quietly, and a doubt comes into my mind. Okay, Friday morning, what the heck am I going to talk about? So, okay, well, what do I take it? Do I start trying to figure it out? Do I start to analyze it? Do I try to sort of come up with something really clever and dazzle you all with my intellectual brilliance? No, I take refuge in, okay, come back, just breathe, just be present, and what comes up that might be useful. Okay, and that's what pops into up into the mind. So that's a very recent example, and I think it's a
then you dazzle us with your non-intellectual brilliance. It's just straight from the heart. It's much more brilliant than straight from the head.
There, and so there's a follow-up on that. So taking refuge in awareness is taking refuge in both the Buddha and the Dhamma, and not that it really matters. Well, I'd say it's taking again. You want to sort of rather than trying to define these too closely or too tightly or too classically, even. Well, what does that actually mean? Because I would say that taking refuge in awareness, knowing, not awareness as my mindfulness technique that I'm doing, but the ability of the heart to know and to be aware. I'd say that is taking refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, because again, in a sense, the Buddha being literally the one who knows. Well, this knowing awareness. Dhamma has the aspect of truth, of the reality of the way things truly are. Sangha has the quality of say integrity and commitment to setting oneself on, in in kind of the right way, and in a good way, supatipanno, practicing in a good way, not tight, not loose, not kind of idealizing, not sloppy and lazy, but it's just this balance. So that is definitely taking refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And of course, there's Buddha when one does reflect on refuges of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha in a more classical manner. What it does is help to reflect back or be a mirror for those qualities inside, so that sometimes having the like, I like having a really beautiful Buddha image on my shrine, both say in my personal shrine, in my kuti, in my dwelling place. I like having well, and of course that's subjective in terms of but what I consider beautiful at say as an image on say when I'm trying to bring say an image, a Buddha image, to America for Abhayagiri. Really trying to have an image that feels inspiring and uplifting, and gives a sense of, oh, that's the embodiment of peace, or that's the embodiment of compassion. So that and then that inspires the mind, and all right, those are the refuges. So that's a an aspect of that's an aspect of so there's this interplay between, say, the internal refuge and, say, external refuge. Question: how do I cultivate faith in the transcendent? Well, I think one is recognizing what, how do we conceive of the transcendent? I think that's a helpful beginning. How do I conceive of the transcendent? And so that from a Buddhist perspective, then what did the Buddha transcend in terms of, and I would say, he was able to transcend suffering, and that sense of, or transcending greed, hatred, delusion. The classical definition of faith in the commentaries is the faith in the awakening of the Buddha, Tathagata Bodhisattva. So that faith in the awakening of the Tathagata, in the Buddha, and so that faith that, so it's not transcendent as something, a thing outside of oneself, which is, I mean, we like, even in the question, it's sort of like, one, you use a noun. We have to use it. Use a noun transcendent, capitalized, capital T. Well, it's a big thing, and it's a noun, so it's really solid. So it's a something. Whereas, say, even in the word that is used in Buddhist jargon, awakening is a verb, or it's a gerund in that sense. I mean, it's a noun derived from a verb, but there's more sense of a process, and I think that is recognize. Okay, this heart of mine and everyone's is capable of awakening. It's capable of waking up. It's capable of realizing clarity and understanding of the nature of the world around us, and to be, say, solid, peaceful, liberated within that. So it's like reflecting on the process. Maybe Ajahn Karunadhammo, you have some reflections on
that. It's a multi-layered question, multi-layered contemplation, really. Going back to your original comment about, what is it that we look at as what is it that we define as transcendent? But I think that just even by having that question kind of indicates that there's a yearning for understanding of something that's greater than our little selves.
Yeah.
And the suffering, of course, that comes from holding tightly to that mode of perception of me being the center of everything, or me needing to find transcendent or transcendence, that kind of a thing. And just to look back at that, that yearning for freedom, and and in a lot of ways, it's freedom from this yoke that we tie around ourselves of being the center of the world of experience, everything through the lens of atta, self, and that what we're trying to transcend is the suffering that comes from that yoke and that burden of holding on to what we think is me or mine, and that creating that aspiration to be free from that, and finding the little experiences when that perception drops away. And what does that feel like? Well, those little moments when there's a clear sense of brightness and awareness and clarity that's at least momentarily free from that self-perception, taking refuge in that, that the beauty and the release of the ending of the momentary end of suffering that's associated with that. And realizing that that's kind of at least an impression of what the transcendent can be if one does that to the fullest extent that one can. And you can look at it and keep it at that kind of level of personal experience, which is where it all starts, and where one has to dwell with that momentary experience. And then, as time goes on, you can extrapolate that to a greater, more cosmic experience of, like complete freedom from the round of rebirth, which, is not a lot of what people like to get their minds around, but it's kind of an extension of that internal experience, bringing it to a broader level, and just, reading the Buddha's struggles and his life story and the night of his enlightenment, and seeing that, gee, this is really, significant, this awakening on a very great level, not only on the internal personal level, but on a very, very expanded level of awareness. And so, whether it's the internal or the external, the internal cosmos or the external cosmos, just realizing the profundity of the potential of release helps to create that faith. And if the Buddha says, that he can do it, and you look at the struggles he went through on his own without a teacher, then assuming that he wasn't just telling a big story, which I don't think, you can use that as inspiration to keep, aspiring for the same thing.
Great. Okay, well, looks like we don't have questions, but we do have announcements, which we forgot about Tuesday.
For a couple of weeks.
Well, actually, yeah, we've been meaning to do announcements for a while now, and we keep forgetting.
So okay. Yes, tomorrow, Saturday, is our garden party, once a month garden party here at the Hermitage. So people come and help us stack some wood or clean out some of the areas of the gardens with weeds and whatnot, or do some line trimming, which clear out a few tent sites for visitors who are coming for the Paba from Bayagir. We've got several monks coming who will be camping out on our property, and we need to kind of tidy up some tent sites for them, which also brings us to the Paba.
Right.
September 18th and 19th. We're still aiming to have a in-person event in the Underwood Community Center, all outdoors, tent shelter, open sides, and further information about our COVID safety precautions if you'd like to come for either the Saturday meditation or the Sunday Paba ceremony itself. All of that information is available on our website, and how we plan to deal with COVID precautions. That's all there. Just encourage people to take a look at that. And it will be also live streamed for people who can't or don't want to come.
It'll be live streamed if there's a distance there, it'll not making it not possible, or as I say, uncomfortable to come, because that's understandable. And also we're still keeping an eye on the situation, which is uncertain. And we might need to all of a sudden pull the plug on it as an in-person event. And then it'll be completely live streamed.
And just keep an eye on the website.
Yeah, the website is where the announcements will be. Yeah, and we're try to be as responsible as possible.
One last announcement is just back on some time ago, concern about advertisements on our YouTube channel. We think we've rectified the problem. If you're still seeing any ads on anything, please just send another email to us at thehermitage@abayagiri.org email, and we'll continue to try and figure it out.
Okay, I think that's it. Take care, everyone.